In the MKE.
This one is way gone. Wild Bill touches the ball.
You want the latest on your favorite team? You've come to the right place.
Here's Freeling deep into right field. He's going to watch it fly.
This is Milwaukee Baseball Tonight, presented by Import Minded, your trusted choice for exceptional vehicle care on South 27th, just north of 894.
Those other guys stepped up, had some good offensive days. Trang was really, really good. Contreras was great. Bowers had a decent day. Black had a big hit. Rengifo had a big hit. Sal had a big hit. Hamilton had good at-bats. Mitchell, big hit. So, yeah, some good things happened. Good things happen.
Here's your host, Hunter Baumgardt.
It's time to talk Brewers baseball for the next hour here on Fox Sports 920 in Milwaukee, WOKY AM. Looking forward to doing that with you after a Brewers 13-1 drubbing of the Arizona Diamondbacks this afternoon, taking the game, taking the series, finishing the homestand at 3-3. Welcome on in. Good to have you along with me. I'll have you till 7 o'clock talking Brewers and talking about what the Brewers did today that leads us to believe the offense is coming alive a little more. You know, obviously 13 runs is great, but we will dig into who's starting to get hot in that Brewers lineup that we've been talking about wanting to get hot for a while. So we'll talk about that coming up here in just a little while, what that could mean going forward. We'll take a look ahead to the weekend in our nation's capital as the Brewers take on the Nationals starting tomorrow night in D.C. through the weekend, and their road trip continues in St. Louis early next week before coming home next weekend to take on the New York Yankees. So we'll get into that coming up. But the news of the day, and really I wish the news of the day was a 13-1 victory, because the Brewers got 14 hits. The offense was rolling from the jump. At one point, they had more hits than outs recorded. Brewers got to 10 hits before they got to 10 outs recorded on offense today. It was an all-offensive day for the Milwaukee Brewers, which is great. And that's exactly what you want to see. And that has been something that's been lacking for the Milwaukee Brewers as of late. However, it was not lacking today, and it was really overall not lacking in this series. I mean, the Brewers scored 28 runs over these 3 games. You average that out, and if my math serves me well, it's about 9+ runs a game. Now, they did it in 2 of the 3 games. They scored 13 on Tuesday, just 2 runs yesterday in the loss, and then 13 runs today. But just the fact that this offense gets to 13 runs, I think, is significant. And obviously taking a series from a team that came in with about the same record as you and being able to take a series at home, finish the homestand at 500. And what have we been talking about needing the Brewers to do? Simply stay afloat. And I know it's not fun to hear. I know it's not like, oh, they should go on a 10-game winning streak, although a 10-game winning streak would be great. Just staying afloat in the race, staying afloat as far as staying above 500, and winning 3 of 4 will do that. And that's exactly what they did. They won the series finale against Pittsburgh, and they took 2 of 3 from Arizona, and now they head to D.C. to see what they can do there. Washington coming off a series win over the New York Mets. The Mets have lost 17 of 20 games. And when you think, oh, man, the Brewers are injured, or, oh, they lost this game, and that's tough, at least you're not dealing with the Mets right now, or even the Phillies to some extent, although I saw they won today, but the Mets are in a tough spot. And a lot of teams are in a tough spot. Brewers are in a tough spot when it comes to injuries, but record-wise, they're staying afloat, and that's what they need to do before they get their guys back. Now, the unfortunate part of today, and again, I wish the story was a 13-1 win, it's Brandon Woodruff leaving early in this game, and want to hear from you on YouTube, Facebook, or X. You can comment there if you're watching us. You can also give us a text on the talking text line at 877-794-1973. What were your thoughts as Brandon Woodruff had to exit the game today in the second inning? His velocity was already down after his, injury, right? We knew that he wasn't going to be the 96-mile-an-hour fastball Brandon Woodruff, maybe 97, right? He was going to have to be more of a pitcher. And what do I mean by that? Well, being more of a guy who is going to have to pick his spots and be more of a pitcher that isn't just relying on that heat and that high velocity fastball. Well, today was a whole different ball game. And he was, as I mentioned, about 92 for his fastball in previous starts. He's at 85, 86, 87 consistently. And obviously the coaching staff and Pat Murphy and everybody noticed that in the first inning, and that he was able to get out of it unscathed. And then he has the conversation with Murph and the coaches in between innings. And they said, and Brandon Woodruff said, you know what? I just want to see, maybe it'll come back in the second inning. Unfortunately, it didn't come back in the second inning, and he got taken out with 1 out in the second inning, and his day was done. So before we go any further, let's hear from Brewers manager Pat Murphy, who gave an extensive update on Brandon Woodruff, what Brandon Woodruff was telling him, what Brandon Woodruff was feeling afterwards, and what the timeline could be for a return for Brandon Woodruff, and if he's going to hit the IL, all those questions, plus some questions and answers about the offense and the way they won today. So let's hear the Pat Murphy post-game press conference earlier today over at American Family Field.
What's the latest on Woody?
Yeah, he doesn't feel like he's injured. He said, my arm's dead. Nothing's coming out. I think we just have to be really cautious here. We're going to get him checked out. We're going to get him tested. We're going to get him everything he needs just in case with his history. But, we've seen it. We've seen it where he came down, his velocity's down early, and then it climbs. We were waiting to see in the second inning if it climbed, but it was down as low as it's ever been. And then, we think maybe some rest, he can build back up, and that'll, people go through stuff like this. Hopefully, he's solid and there's no injury there. That would be awful, but I think he'll be down for a while. I'm not going to say right now before any of these tests get done or that type of thing, but it seems like something he's going to be able to work through.
IL, just to clarify?
We haven't made a final decision on that, but that's in the conversation.
Is there any indication before he got on the mound that things
No.
were off? Or was
No,
that
no. And when he warms up every time, Jack, he warms up like that. 84, 85, nothing special, locating, getting his feel for his change, cutter. And then when he got to the mound, it didn't change at all. And then after the first inning, we said, hey, man, what do you got? And he said, well, let me go back and see if I can get a little extra. And then you're starting to think, wait a minute, we don't want him to get a little extra and then maybe something happens to him if he strains or whatever. So I think it's a process he's got to go through.
Was there anything in the recovery from the last start leading up to it that was just off in his?
Remember, we took him out early. Remember, we took him out after 5. We could have left him in. It was a low pitch count. He wouldn't. He was prompting that. Like, hey, this might be a good spot. We were ahead in the game, I believe, or whatever. We had a good lead or something, and he's like, this might be a good spot. So when he's talking like that, we're like, But he said he wasn't like he was injured. He knows himself pretty well.
On that note, Woody, he's just a guy that will always let you know when something's wrong.
Oh, for sure. For sure. He's been through too much.
On a brighter note, Drowan, to pick him up back into that, granted the offense was awesome too for him, but for Drowan to give you the bulk that you guys
Yeah, he was. You think about Contreras catching this many games in a row and putting out the numbers he did today. Contreras was amazing, and to catch how many different pitchers today? 6 different pitchers today, and a long, day game after night game. Him to put up that offensive game he did, and then Jerome was spectacular. Here's a rookie in his third appearance, and throwing 4 innings of, I don't know, I guess he gave up 1 run, but he was great. Everybody that threw today was very good.
Does that allow you to breathe a little bit, Murph, when the runs and then the pitching in order? It could have been a really, going out on the run, it could have been a really disastrous day.
Yeah, it could have been. And again, those other guys stepped up, had some good offensive days. Terang was really, really good. Contreras was great. Bowers had a decent day. And Black had a big hit. Rengifo had a big hit. Sal had a big hit. Hamilton had good at-bats. Mitchell big hit. So yeah, some good things happen. Good things happen against the pitcher that had been. I mean, look at that guy's numbers. That had been unbelievable.
Murph, you talked about Contreras, but catching every game with a homestand, and then on the last day of the homestand being able to get on base 5 times. I mean, you talk about him a lot, but that's just,
Yeah,
I got it.
yeah, he's his own man, and but there's no question that guy likes to compete. You know what I mean? And Gary, his backup and our normal DH, has done a lot of great things for us too. But William, certain games I want him to catch, certain times I want him to do this all 3 thing. You know, not every time for sure, but.
Everything good with Bowers for that collision? I know he stayed in the game.
Bowers and Freeling
Yeah.
ran into each other. Yeah, they didn't really run into each other. 2 below average athletes just trying to get out of each other's way. You guys knew you knew I'd say that.
Murphy, would you stay back, you're saying, for these tests?
No, he's going to go with us. He'll go with us.
Oh.
Yeah, he's going to fly and meet us. He'll do some tests and fly and meet us. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
So there you go. That is Brewers manager Pat Murphy after the 13-1 win over the Arizona Diamondbacks. And obviously most of the questions were about Brandon Woodruff. And he is going to go on the trip, just going to first get some tests and then fly separately, it sounds like, to Washington, D.C., where the Brewers take on the Nationals starting tomorrow. Usually we talk to the starting pitcher even after they're injured. Sometimes we are able to talk to them. Not all the time, just depends on the circumstance. Today, unfortunately, we were not able to catch up with Brandon Woodruff due to the fact that he was already getting an MRI. So they already had him doing that. So they wanted to get that done, and I'm sure he wanted to find out anything that was going on, hopefully rule out as much as you can before the weekend. So we'll see. I'm guessing Pat Murphy will have more information coming up tomorrow, coming up Saturday, Sunday in D.C. For those that will be there, and we'll obviously bring it to you when we can. But unfortunately, just obviously, okay, a couple things you take from that. One, Pat Murphy saying that he's going to, probably take some time means, I would think they're leaning towards an IL stint, and that's 15 days at least. That's 3 starts that Brandon Woodruff would miss. So that is obviously on the outset not great. If it's a minimum, if it's 15 days and that's it, I think you may be in, really good shape. He also talked about building back up, meaning if he takes some time off, maybe he has to then build back up to where he can start at the big league level again. And if that's the case, then you're probably looking at probably a month or so. And then obviously worst case scenario is a deeper injury that we're not aware of. The weird part about it is that he doesn't feel injured. I just, the Brandon Woodruff thing has been mystifying. Just kind of the whole, not the situation, not that they're downplaying anything or anything like that. It's more so that it's just been, every time he's been out there, it's felt kind of like a bonus. And to pay a guy, $22 million a year. I know there are a lot of people who are upset about that and saying, you're paying this guy $22 million a year. Why invest in this guy if it's going to be an up and down type of year? Well, up and down, whether when it comes to injuries, not necessarily results, but injuries. And I get that. And there's an argument to be made that why would you invest, if you're going to invest in a player, why would you invest in a player that has this type of risk? The other side to that is, they have a lot of years invested in Brandon Woodruff. He knows the Brewers. They know him. He trusts those guys. And I feel like he has, earned that, but, he's definitely earned the money, but he's earned that opportunity. And I think the Brewers see it as, okay, we could go sign a veteran that we don't know, but we think this guy clearly can pitch still, even though he may not be hitting 96, 97 on the radar gun. He showed it last year. And so let's bring him back to lead our rotation, and not necessarily lead it on the field, because Jacob Mizorowski was the opening day starter and everything like that, but he's a big leader in that clubhouse. So I think it's also important that he's going on these trips and still being around the club. I just don't know. It's so hard to tell, like, what is concerning, what's not concerning. Pat Murphy references how they took him out a little earlier than maybe they would have in a different circumstance last time out, where they had a conversation with him and Woodsy's like, yeah, I don't know if I can go another. Like, I know that's also another sign of you'd like your pitchers to be able to say, yeah, hey, I'm good to go, coach. I'm good to go, manager, right? I'm good to go, Murph. But with Woody, you want him to be healthy throughout the season, and you don't want to push him. And I think Pat Murphy was really smart when he said, and when the team thought, you know what, if we leave him out there today, sure, he could navigate it like he did in the first inning and navigate through it and get some outs and maybe have a fine outing results-wise, but maybe he's going to be trying more, and then you pull something else. So very wise decision to pull him early, although then you set up the bullpen to be in a tougher situation. So it's hard to read how long this is going to be, but considering he said they're likely going to give him some time off, I would think this is an IL stint. That's 15 days, and I would think you're looking at at least 3 weeks, probably 2 to 3 weeks at least with the IL stint, and then anything after that is unknown at this point. They've not placed him on the injured list, but if that is going to happen, that may happen, tomorrow or Saturday, and they could retroactive it back to this injury. But I'm as interested as you are, and the thing about it is as a guy, as meaningful as Brandon Woodruff has been, he's been incredibly meaningful for the Milwaukee Brewers over his many, many years in the organization. Great dude, and he just keeps fighting it, right? He finally gets back on the mound, pitches for a couple of months last year, then is out for the postseason. And now he comes back this year, kind of cruising along, it seems. It doesn't seem like anything was too significant between starts. It sounds like really, until he got out there on the mound today, taking what Pat Murphy said, that there wasn't any clues as to what could have been going on. So it sounds like he was kind of cruising along and then just didn't have it today. Now, I guess in some world, it's possible that he just didn't have it today and didn't have the strength and maybe was sick I don't, but they're obviously going to do testing and to determine all that. But no sign of him being sick. If he was sick, I think that would be something that we would have heard. So I'm not going to, I wouldn't speculate necessarily on that, but more so like maybe he just didn't have it. If it was 1 or 2 ticks down on velocity, I'd buy that a little more. But since it was 7 ticks down on the fastball, 7 mile per hour, 92 to 85 or 92 to 86 or 92 even to 87 consistently, like that is what's concerning. Want to hear from you, YouTube, Facebook, X, what have you. Let's see here. Charles says a couple things here. I don't even know what to think about Woody. Hope for the best, ? They seem surprisingly not as concerned as I would have thought. Fingers are crossed on the checking out he's getting. Yeah, it's well said, Charles. And that's kind of, you're kind of hearing me talk about it here. I'm kind of at a loss for words as I don't really know what to make of really. I mean, throughout spring training, remember his whole thing, nearly every time he talked to the media in spring training was, I want to be healthy in August, September, and October for this team. So to me, I thought kind of like, well, maybe he's just not going to be ready for the start of the season. Well, then he's part of the rotation. Now they gave him 5 extra days and he was the last guy to go in that starting rotation, but he's been able to make regular starts and they've been able to use some off days strategically and bump him back a little bit here and there. But he's made, this is the 6th start of the season today. I mean, 6 starts in the first month and few days of the season. Yeah, I think that would be probably maybe even better than what the Brewers organization thought. Pat Murphy talked about that before the game today, which is very interesting. Listen to what Pat Murphy had to say before the game today about what they've gotten from Woodruff heading into the start today. This is before the game today. Take a listen to Pat Murphy talking about Woody.
I don't think anybody would have guessed that he would have made 6 starts in April and do so well. Coming off what he's coming off. So it's been a blessing for us to have him make those 6 starts. And I think it's going to take a toll on him at some point. I don't think he can make 36 starts, but I don't put much past Woody. You never know. He really takes care of himself, and he really is a fierce competitor. But
just fascinating that before the game, Pat Murphy talked about the possibility of these starts taking a toll on him eventually. Clearly, he isn't what he was, 3-4 years ago, right? Health wise, as far as being able to go through a full major league season with no hiccups. So maybe this is just the one hiccup that we see throughout the year. But also saying that, he's probably not going to make 36 starts. And then he was then asked as a follow-up question, okay, if that's the case, is there planned time off throughout the season for Brandon Woodruff? And Murphy's like, no. We'll just listen to him and listen to his body and obviously see how he responds and all that. So maybe, and I think coming into this season, the Brewers knew that it was a probability, not even a possibility, a probability that Brandon Woodruff would have to take some time off at some point in the season. And if that's the case, sure, you can question the $22 million, but I just, the other part of that is that's a little scary from the organization standpoint, where you're putting this guy out there and crossing your fingers every time he goes out there. And I'm sure that's a little unnerving. Now, do you trust Brandon Woodruff? Absolutely. Do you trust him to go out there and navigate any start that he's in? Absolutely. So that's why you keep him on your team, you pay him the money, and you have him be in your starting rotation. The risk with it is that he may need some time out. Now, the great thing about where the Brewers sit is that they have options of guys that can fill that role. Are they going to do exactly what Brandon Woodruff does? No. But are they going to do probably well in their own right because they're in the Brewers organization? Probably, right? A Gasser or a Coleman Crow or a Logan Henderson. Who could replace Brandon Woodruff in the rotation if he's out an extended period of time? Well, you take a look-see to Nashville, and guess who's starting tonight? They have a doubleheader. It's Robert Gasser and Coleman Crow. So they're on the Woody timeline, so to speak, right? They're on the day that Woodruff started. So if I were to guess, Coleman Crow, we saw him already once this year. He pitched pretty well in Miami. A lot of people want to see him again. I want to see him again. I would love for Coleman Crow to be the guy that comes up. But then again, it's like, okay, what about Logan Henderson? What about Robert Gasser? And Gasser's dealt with a little bit of an injury throughout this first month of the season, but he's building back up, and I would think he's a factor into this decision. But if I were to guess, maybe it is Coleman Crow. We'll see. Speaking of where the Brewers are at and Brandon Woodruff today, I want to play you a little bit of William Contreras. Now, he, of course, as Pat Murphy alluded to, and I asked Pat Murphy about it I brought it up there in the post-game press conference about William Contreras catching every single inning of the homestand. Guys, that is not what a lot of catchers do. That is rare that you see a catcher catch every single inning. He was not taken out at all. He caught every inning of that homestand, all 3 games against Pittsburgh, all 3 games against the Arizona Diamondbacks. That is really impressive. And to go through all of that, and then on the 6th day, the final day of the homestand, he gets on base 5 times? Wow. Pretty impressive what William Contreras was able to do, and almost always impressive what he's able to do. But he talked to us after the game. It's through translator Daniel De Mondesert, great guy, and really appreciate his work translating for William Contreras here. But it really gives you an insight into what William Contreras was thinking as Brandon Woodruff's velocity was down early in the start. And William Contreras said he kind of noticed something a little bit before Brandon Woodruff took the mound. So take a listen to William Contreras talking to the media after the game.
William, first, what's your concern about Woodruff? Your level of concern?
No sé qué pasa con el respecto, en verdad en este momento no sé qué tiene o qué le pasó, pero nada, mi respeto para él porque salió a dar lo mejor de él a pesar que no se sentía bien, nunca quiso salirse del juego y eso se merece mucho respeto a mi favor.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what to say in regards to that. I don't know exactly, what he's got. But that being said, he went out there to compete, and he went out there, with what he did have, and for that, I think he's, it deserves a ton of respect and gets a ton of respect on my part for that.
What does it say about his wherewithal to be able to get guys out while throwing the mid-innings for that first inning?
¿Qué dice su habilidad de sacar hasta que está tirando?
Es un pitcher que comanda la zona, es un pitcher que sabe dónde tira los picheos. Esté saludable o no esté saludable, como lo que pasó hoy, pero con todo eso estaba tirando los picheos donde quería, a pesar que no tenía su velocidad, no estaba gente saludable, pero dominó, siempre sale a su mejor trabajo de él.
Yeah, he's a command pitcher. This is a guy that knows where he's putting the ball, whether he's healthy or whether he's not so healthy. So again, tremendous credit for him to go out there and compete. And it's the big who that we all know that regardless of what he has, he's going to go out there and pitch.
Offensively, you've had a couple die at the track. You've had some really close games. Just finally have a day where the stat sheet lines up with your contact. The reactions from that.
Sí, vengo trabajando desde que comenzó la temporada, no me habían salido las cosas, obviamente he tenido buenos contactos, he llevado la pelota lejos, pero no había salido nada hasta hoy, gracias a Dios, tuve un tremendo día. Y espero seguir consistente con mi trabajo y ayudar al equipo a ganar.
Yeah, same thing that I've been working on since the beginning of season. Just been working hard to get that hard contact, and like you said, some of this hard contact just hasn't left the yard, and today it was able to. So just going to keep on working hard, keep on working to do whatever I can to help the team win, and just to be as consistent as possible.
William, is it right that Woodruff often warms up and the velocity is low, and then he goes out in the game and it comes up? I was wondering at what point today you got concerned.
Sí, el bullpen supe que algo no estaba bien, cuando él siempre dice los dos últimos picheos, él tira lo mejor que tiene, y hoy noté que no estaba bien. Pero como lo dije, salió a dar lo mejor, nunca se rindió, nunca se salió del juego. Eso es bueno para que los jóvenes agarren la experiencia de él, para que vean ese ejemplo y salgan siempre lo mejor de ti.
Yeah, I think I had a feeling there in the bullpen. And usually whenever he says he's got two more, he'll let it eat a little bit more. And on those two, I knew there was something a little bit down. But again, like I said, a ton of respect for him for going out there and never backing down. And I think it's a great learning lesson for the younger guys in the room, to never back down and to go out there and compete and just be ready for the moment. So I think it's a good experience for those guys to learn from that experience.
Well said there by William Contreras, and talking about, with the ability of Brandon Woodruff to just, okay, something maybe a little off, but I'm going to go try to make this thing work. And he pitches a scoreless first inning, gets it out in the second inning, and then they take him out. But I think it is something to consider if you're a younger pitcher in there, just battle, just battling. And the ability of Brandon Woodruff to just have that mindset, and he's had it since he came back from the injury of, I may not have the stuff I once did, but I'm still going to get you out. And that has been the mindset of Brandon Woodruff since he came back in Miami last summer, and he took that into today. Now, of course, you also got to be cautious, and Brandon Woodruff, and we've heard from Pat Murphy that Brandon Woodruff is very honest with them when he's feeling fatigued or feeling ready to be done with a start. And that's also very good, too, because you got to know your body, and that's also good for the young pitchers to learn as well. But William Contreras had a fantastic day on offense, on base all 5 times, getting rewarded, getting the home run. So great to see Wild Bill doing what he does, 4 for 4 on base 5 times for the Milwaukee Brewers today. All right, one other player I want you to hear from, and that is Shane Drowan. And I see some comments coming in, one about Shane Drowan. We're going to get to the comments on the other side of the break because there are some fantastic comments on there, and we are going to get to all your questions. So I see them coming in. Thanks for sending them. Keep sending them, and we're going to get to them in the next segment because I'm interested to hear your thoughts and answer some of those questions that are coming in. Here is Shane Drowan talking to the media after the game. Shane, of course, came in emergency fashion in that second inning, ended up pitching 4 innings of just emergency relief, which was really impressive. Here is Shane Drowan.
In the second inning, just kind of take us through what the group is thinking and feeling out there, knowing that you guys are going to have to carry the load the rest of the way.
I I felt like we were all ready to go. Whatever the team needed, I think everybody down there was willing to do it. Sometimes that can happen. It's part of the game, so you just got to be ready at any moment.
When you think about your stuff these last few innings, what pitch or pitches do you feel like you've been able to execute best?
I think it all starts with just commanding fastball. I think just everything plays off of that. Having a good mix with all the pitches, but mainly just the fastball, putting in the zone where I want it, elevating down at the knees, in and out. So I think it all starts there.
What's the feedback that you try to gather from whether it be hitters' swings or your own reports of things that you know that you're starting to see that you're capable of in the big leagues?
Yeah, I think it's just trusting the info, all the department gives us, and then just focusing on executing. Sometimes, you can read the swings, other times it's just stick to the scouting report. I feel like 2-3 times through the order, that's when you're really relying on reading the swings. And, I feel like William helped me out a lot there.
Have you ever pitched 4 innings on 1 day rest, and what was that experience like?
I have not. No, that was the first time. But overall, it was nothing too crazy. Nothing I didn't feel like I couldn't handle. Just sticking to the routine every day. I prepare the same way to throw, whether it's for 60 feet or 5 or 6 innings. So I think it's just all goes back to that routine.
Have you talked to Woodruff at all? How's he doing?
No, I haven't seen him.
How did it feel to pick up your first MLB win?
Felt great. Got the first one out of the way, so hopefully a lot more to come.
There he is, Brewers pitcher Shane Drowan. I beg your pardon. He did not come in the second inning. He came in the third inning because Grant Anderson got the last 2 outs of the second inning, got 2 strikeouts. That guy has been an underrated part of the Brewers bullpen. But Shane Drowan goes 4 innings, 1 earned run, 5 hits, 4 strikeouts, no walks. And Shane Drowan gets his first major league win, as you heard referenced later in that press conference there. And great to see. Always cool when you get your first major league win. And that is what Shane Drowan ended up getting today with his 4 innings of relief. McGill, another scoreless outing. That's 6 straight outings for Trevor McGill without an earned run. Over that time, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. Trevor McGill's rounding into form. I wonder if we see him in that closer role or higher leverage pretty soon. We shall see. Want to hear from you on YouTube, Facebook, or X. Also on the talk and text line at 877-794-1973. When we come back, I'll get to all of your comments. That is coming up next. And we'll also talk about the offense a little bit. Who's heating up? And who should we be paying attention to as the Brewers take on the Nationals coming up this weekend? It's all on the way. You're listening to Milwaukee Baseball Tonight. I'm Hunter Baumgardt. It's presented by Import Minded on Fox Sports 920. Milwaukee Baseball Tonight continues here on Fox Sports 920, the iHeartRadio app, and Facebook, YouTube, and X. Search Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin. Lot to get to in the final 25 minutes of the program. The offense, is it coming alive for the Milwaukee Brewers? We'll dig into that a little bit. Also, want to get to your comments here, and let's get to those right now. Let's go to Tom first. Tom says the numbers dip noticeably when Gary Sanchez catches. Do you think this is a sign of lack of trust with Gary behind the plate, as well as a need to get some wins and momentum? Yeah, I it's interesting because Pat Murphy, when I brought up William Contreras after the game, Pat Murphy talked about Gary Sanchez as well, saying he's, done well in his spots. I think Gary is better utilized on the team as a DH maybe rather than behind the plate. That's where I kind of see, and of course he has to be behind the plate because he's the backup catcher and William Contreras can't catch every day, although he probably wants to. But for the safety of all involved, I wouldn't be surprised maybe if tomorrow is the day that you see Gary Sanchez behind the plate. But Gary Sanchez is a veteran, been there, done that. But William Contreras is one of the best in the game. I think he either leads. I haven't looked at the latest stats, but he's either at the top or right at it in leading the league in caught stealing and catching guys stealing. So he is one of the best defensive catchers in baseball, and not necessarily all about catching guys stealing or his pickoff moves or whatever it happens to be, right? Getting guys out. It's more so working with the pitchers. I tell you, William Contreras, from what I hear, from what I've witnessed, he is so good at guiding his pitchers through a game. And maybe going back to Tom, going back to what you said there of the trust factor, I don't know if it's a lack of trust with Sanchez, but Contreras is so good at it and does it more often that I would think pitchers really like to work with him. And when they don't, maybe it does take a little step down. Now, that's no excuse for the pitchers and obviously for Gary Sanchez. And Sanchez is a viable catcher. He's done it for a long time. There's a reason he's had a long career. But when you compare the guys, there's a reason there's one that's a starter and one's the backup. So, unfortunately, you have to give William Contreras rest, although there was no rest for him at all in this entire series. He played every inning. But I do think that there is a difference in results sometimes because William Contreras is just so good at what he does. And boy, it is becoming more and more evident. I mean, obviously the offensive numbers are significant and the Brewers would not be 16-14 if he wasn't doing what he is offensively, because when you have Churio, Vaughn, and Yelich out, you need your stars to still be your stars, because if three of your top 5 hitters are out, you need those other 2 to produce, and Turang and Contreras have definitely produced. And especially today, but setting aside what he does on the offensive side, he is exceptional on the defensive side. The pitch sequencing, the calling of pitches, what he does behind the plate. We've talked to Kyle Harris. We've talked to almost, I think, every pitcher talking about William Contreras' impact on them. And every single one of them says it's significant. So great question, Tom. I think there's different factors to that. Tom also says, stinks for Woodruff, but also excited for Henderson. Same with the Serpa injury, except for Drowan. So, if Henderson is the one to get the call, we'll be interested to see him back at the major league level. Otherwise, if it's a Coleman Crowe or a Robert Gasser, right, then, hey, all the power to him as well. And excited to see those guys, whoever it may be, get that opportunity if Brandon Woodruff does go on the injured list. The other name you mentioned there, Shane Drowan, who I said had 4 innings of relief today, coming back from 1 inning of relief in a tight ball game. And just, I tell you, his ability in this series, these last 2 outings, have been really impressive, Shane Drowan. And I just go back to when they made that trade with Boston, trading Caleb Durbin away, getting Kyle Harrison back, obviously getting David Hamilton back, and also getting Shane Drowan back, and thinking Shane Drowan seems like a guy who could be very viable in this bullpen. And you knew that not everybody who had pitched well last year in that Brewers bullpen was going to pitch well this year. That is how it goes with relievers. That is just how it goes, right? With relievers, it is a very up and down job, right? There are years where they're great and there's years where they're not. And then maybe they come back, or maybe they're just, only great for a year or two. So you knew there was going to be some ups and downs with that bullpen this year. And early in the season, there have been some significant downs and some injuries, obviously, with Koenig and Serpa. So that has opened the door for Shane Drowan. And as much as maybe the organization wanted him to start, or he wants to be a starter, I'm sure this is the role that I kind of envisioned for him coming into the season. And why? Because it just makes sense with how many starters they have, but also wanting him to be better, to be with the major league club. And because he has the stuff of a major league pitcher. Pat Murphy has said, he said it in spring training, he's going to impact the major league club. And Shane Drowan said that was the organization's message to him when he didn't make the opening day roster. You are going to be at the major league level at some point. He's called up in Boston, goes back down, comes back up, and he's been good in the bullpen. Watch out for him, and then watch out for Brian Fitzpatrick as well. With Serpa out for probably a longer period of time, and Jared Koenig already out till late May, early June, I would think that Brian Fitzpatrick, lefty, and also Shane Drowan, lefty, are going to get some of those higher leverage lefty spots. The only other two lefties in the bullpen are DL Hall and Aaron Ashby. Aaron Ashby is obviously going to get some lefty, higher leverage spots for a lefty, but also Fitzpatrick and Drowan. Maybe they won't shove Fitzpatrick into the fire necessarily right away, but I do think Shane Drowan could be ticketed for higher leverage as we go if lineups have more lefties in them when they need a bullpen arm. So pay attention to that going forward. Charles says, whatever happens with Woodruff, if they can just have him pitching at a high clip at the end of the year, I'd be ecstatic. Charles, I agree with you. And that's what Woodruff said in spring training, right? I want to be healthy at the end of the year. And at this point, I kind of agree with him. Like, we can see what Coleman Crowe has. We can see what Robert Gasser has. We can see what Logan Anderson has, and make sure Woody's prioritizing that end of the year. Now, you also, as I mentioned, and the salary does come into it. You paid a lot, right, for Brandon Woodruff, the most that Brewers pitchers ever made in 1 year. So you keep that in mind. You want him to make as many starts as you can. And obviously Woodruff wants to make as many starts as he can. But you also want to have him at the end of the year. So with that being said, again, that goes back to what I kind of think of an IL stint coming up here, no matter what the findings may find. Let's see here. Charles says, going along with that, thank goodness they have such a deep pitching staff at AAA. The job they do year after year bringing in, developing these guys is amazing. It really is. It really is. Robert Gasser pitched tonight in Nashville, by the way. He is done after 2 2/3, and he pitched 58 pitches. Boss chiming in with that, 60 pitches, middle of the third. So, 2 2/3, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 5 Ks for Gasser. He struck out 3 in the first inning. Nashville's up 2-1. Jackson Churio and Andrew Vaughn both in the lineup again tonight for Nashville. Last night, they both played 5 innings. I think they do the same thing about the same tonight. Churio's 0 for 1, and Vaughn is 1 for 2. Churio has also walked tonight as well. So good to see those two. Just stay healthy. Just stay healthy. And also, Boss says Ortiz better start. He's start looking for. Okay, Ortiz better start looking for apartments in Nashville. Pratt keeps improving. Okay, well, that's a bit harsh, but Pratt, the more he improves in AAA, the more enticing it's going to be for the organization to bring him up because of that contract. That's just the simple reality of it. So when we come back, our final segment of Milwaukee Baseball Tonight, we'll get to more of your comments if you have any questions for the program. And then we'll look ahead to the weekend in our nation's capital for the Brewers as they face the Washington Nationals over the weekend. We'll be right back with that preview coming up. It's Milwaukee Baseball Tonight, presented by Import Minded, your trusted choice for exceptional vehicle care on South 27th, just north of 894. We'll be right back on Fox Sports 920. Welcome back to Milwaukee Baseball Tonight on Fox Sports 920 in Milwaukee. I'm Hunter Baumgardt, your host. It's presented by Import Minded. Thanks so much to Import Minded for being our presenting sponsor all season long on the baseball pregame show and Milwaukee Baseball Tonight. Tomorrow is the next baseball pregame show, 4:30. Going to use that for Brewers and Nationals, and I will not be hosting the show. Dave Gasper is going to be filling in for me tomorrow. I appreciate his work, and he is going to be doing that coming up 4:30 until 5:30. So definitely tune in tomorrow, the baseball pregame show, as the Brewers get set to take on the Nationals. He'll have any updates on Brandon Woodruff from D.C., etc. So Dave Gasper covers the Brewers for Brew Crew Ball. We had him on the show yesterday, and you've also heard him on the Huddle, and you'll hear him actually on the Huddle next week as he fills in. So he is going to be coming up on the show tomorrow at 4:30. That is our next baseball pregame show, and then we'll have another one Monday, Tuesday of next week, and we'll also, of course, have Milwaukee Baseball Tonight next Thursday. So looking forward to a fun week of Brewers content next week as well, and hopefully the Brewers can get a couple of wins, if not 3 wins in Washington, and avenge that series sweep that they fell to the Nationals back in mid-April. So this offense seems to be coming alive for the Milwaukee Brewers. Rengifo went 3 for 10 in the Arizona Diamondbacks series. That's batting .300. Sal Frelick in his last 12 games, a .265 average, couple of home runs, 6 RBIs. His batting averages went from 177 to .211, so that's good. I know .211 isn't great, but it's at least it's rising. Tyler Black in 5 games so far at the major league level this year, .389 average, 3 runs driven in, a walk, and 4 Ks. He's been a kind of a bright spot, a surprise there. And just the offense as a whole, right? 3 of 4 games where you've had 5+ runs. You've won those 3 of 4 games as well. And the team as a whole has won 3 of 4. I saw some comments coming in about Greg Jones. Look, he is obviously going to be an odd man out when Churio and Vaughn come back, hopefully next week, for those guys to return to the major league level. Feel for the guy because he's just not found success with the crew. But I don't know what other option they have at this point. Like a switch hitter, yes, that is part of the reason why they're using him. But also, I mean, I don't know if, obviously Lockridge has played more. So, but eventually he's got to have a day off. So I think that was, kind of the impetus behind Jones being in the lineup. But you just don't have a lot of other options right now. And Matos didn't play well. They obviously designated him for assignment. He's been outrighted to AAA Nashville, so he'll be joining the Sounds. But yeah, so the Greg Jones era is probably about to end in Milwaukee with Churio and Vaughn on the horizon to return. But unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out. Okay, so let's get to the pitching matchups this weekend between the Brewers and the Nationals. This is wild. The Brewers are facing the same 3 pitchers they faced at home in the same order. So the Brewers played the Nationals in April. I think it was April 10th to the 12th, a couple of weekends ago. And they obviously got swept by the Nationals, the 10th through the 12th. And they faced Jake Irvin, Foster Griffin, and Zach Littell. Well, who are they facing this weekend? Jake Irvin, Foster Griffin, and Zach Littell. So this is going to be fascinating to see. Now, the Brewers were able to get to the most was Zach Littell. In that game, they lost actually 8-6 in that game, in that series finale. But Littell pitched 5 innings. They got 3 earned runs on him, 3 home runs in that game off Littell. So that was good. I'm sure they'll be watching some of that tape. But yeah, and then for the Brewers, it's Jacob Misiorowski tomorrow, Kyle Harrison on Saturday, and then Chad Patrick on Sunday. So those are the probables for the series in Washington. A 5:45 first pitch tomorrow, as I mentioned, the pregame show 4:30 to 5:30, and then a 3:05 first pitch afternoon game on Saturday, and then Sunday's game will start at 12:35. So those are the pitching matchups for this weekend in D.C., and then the Brewers head to St. Louis. Again, the estimated time last we heard for Vaughn and Churio to return was Monday. So very much looking forward to that. That could be the case. They're playing in Nashville tonight for the Sounds. Appreciate everybody commenting. Really, really fun to talk to everybody on the stream, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Appreciate all of your interaction. I always do. Always love taking your questions and talking Brewers baseball every Thursday from 6 to 7 and an hour before weeknight games. Absolutely love it. So cannot wait to do it again. Dave Gasper will be in for me tomorrow on the Baseball Pregame Show. Thanks so much for listening. This has been Milwaukee Baseball Tonight presented by Import Minded, your trusted choice for exceptional vehicle care on South 27th, just north of 894, right here on Fox Sports 920.